Hello everybody. Today I'm gonna do a scenario where, humanity just like humanity basically so you know how there's the thing with the sun is going to explode in in 5 billion years, right? Well, what if everything about that was completely wrong and it's actually going to explode in 2 years, actually? What if we just calculated that entire thing wrong? What if just what if that just all happened and we got it all wrong there? Okay? Just so this is gonna be the scenario. So I'm actually going to be on this tool pretty often for this, because I do have this entire thing planned out, but I'm gonna start off random. Never mind, I have to start. So I'm going to start off with the RSF, the RSF. You know, draw card, draw card. Hello, right? I know. I literally just have to do this, right? So, um, nope. Okay. So the rapid support, the so the rap, so the rapid support force, um, eventually just the army is kind of capitulating over. They're kind of joining in with the rapid support force just to make these this last year um the best year they could have. So Sudan officially unites here. Yeah. Sudan unites. Meanwhile, over here in Europe, there's going to be some chaos, especially with Russia. The Russians, the Russians, they are going to, yeah. So NATO's gonna just invoke Article 5, but the Russians genuinely don't care if they collapse or not, because literally, no matter if they do or not, it's just gonna be they're gonna die either way. So they just don't care. And they begin invading all of NATO. They begin dropping tons of nukes, and it's really a bummer. And in a way, it was just so shocking for NATO that Russia expanded its borders further than it ever has throughout history. In fact, even the US was really surprised by this happening. It was a really big surprise. They also came after, the Caucasus and Kazakhstan. They began to take all of that over. I mean, just very quick. And China caught on to this. China was invaded by Russia, surprisingly, because Russia literally they basically declared war on every single country in the world. It was just insanity. And it's just really shocking to everyone that they just, did this. And then Russia just really quickly expanded through everybody, gaining a lot of power as they went. And a little something happened over in Alaska. Let's just say. Just give me. Yep, just another second. There we go. The Russians just begin to wipe out Alaska. They push into Canada. And Alaska officially. Okay, and so Russia officially becomes the strongest country. But eventually, um, good things have to come to an end, if you could even consider this a good thing. Um, I guess it's a good thing for Russia. We're also about a month in, which is kind of surprising, but I gotta make this extreme, a little bit longer than this actually would be. So anyway, um, everyone finally begins to push back. Countries begin to be liberated. And you know what? Some of the countries who are being liberated over in Europe at the moment, they're like, do we really even care? So yeah, the Russians just begin to collapse. Anarchy is spreading throughout all of Russia, and it's just terrible. And the Canadians are, are like, you know what, America, just take this. So now Alaska is officially part of the mainland United States. Great thing for them. Yep. And basically, they kind of form a union. I mean, they kind of do. A lot of the provinces of Canada basically just join the United States, but they need free healthcare. So only in those states do you have free healthcare, and there are some complaints about that, But there's a giant union, and it's called the North American Union now. Not really the United States anymore, but I'm not gonna change it. I'm too lazy to do that. Like, what do you guys really expect me to change the name? I'm too lazy to do that. No. Yeah. Um, so all of that happens, and eventually the rest of the Canadian areas and provinces and towns capitulate, and Greenland is America, or at least most of it is. Like the the Danish are kind of they were allowed to keep a good portion of Greenland, and the Danish kind of hate America now. That's their number one enemy. Yeah. But this is the North American Union, and the Danish are like, and Iceland are like, you know what? Let's just join this. Oh, oh. I'm gonna pretend I already knew that Denmark was no more. So instantly, the North American Union pulls through Siberia, which kind of crushes Russian spirit, and a really they reach a breaking point, and the Russian Empire is like, okay, no peace. So this is what the peace treaty looks like at the moment. Because but really during the war, I just wanted to make things easier. Um, the U.S. got about over here. They pushed like really far in, and soon the Chinese are going to begin to take their land back from Russia, and a lot of lands back from Russia, just Russian lands. Oh, and the Chinese also were kind of going anarchist. Like, their leader is now an anarchist and and literally, they just begin to invade India before there's any response, really. Um, which wasn't great. It wasn't just because I made an accident there. And so the Chinese kind of gain back a lot of land. They kind of but their president is also kind of anarchist. So, yeah, over here in Asia, we're not doing too well. Meanwhile, Kim Jong Un, he finally decides it's time. He finally decides, I I will do this, and soon North Korea invades South Korea, and for some reason they get Tokyo. Wait, what? Anyway, Japan though they had a law. Hmm. 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 There we go. Okay. So, but Japan pushes back. They take back Tokyo, and they also begin to take land from the Russians. They kind of go along Manchuria, but they really want some of that Manchurian land, for historical reasons, of course. They also are going to take half of that island for historical reasons, of course. No, 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 no. What? Thank you. Anyway, Japan just kind of takes this over, and in Asia, a lot of countries are kind of going anarchist at the moment. They're like, and the Japanese declare war on China, and China was gonna declare war on Japan, so they were already sending some troops over. But at first, it was kind of a surprise. They didn't attack. They didn't suspect an anarchist Japan. They did not expect that. But they begin to close in on the gates of Beijing, but they cannot enter the Beijing what? And soon China pushes them back, taking the taking Korea and a lot of land back from Japan. I think they might even be going past their original border right now. Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. And Japan is definitely pushed back. So then they peace. China's kind of happy with this because they're anarchist and all that. And then we're gonna go down to India though. In India, state, okay, Republic of India. There. Okay, never mind. Down in India, they begin to make a pushback. And they also get an anarchist leader, and they begin to invade like some of Southeast Asia. They begin to take some of this back, but they are some of this. I mean, not some of that back. And they begin to take out the Chinese soldiers, and they begin to reach the gates of Delhi, and the Battle of Delhi will commence, which will go on for two whole days. Karachi is taken back, and the Indians go up where the Indus Valley civilization was, and take Lahore, and spring back down into Delhi, which officially ended the battle, which was about like 3 hours, before the battle ended. They came down there, and India kind of begins to take land from China. India, they're not really focused too much up here. Like, sure, they have some soldiers, but it's like they don't really focus over here. They begin to focus over and on the collapsing Russia a little more, but they're not really focused down here or up here at all. They're really focused though on the economical area, which is the east of China. So they begin to kind of go over there, and the Chinese know they'll collapse. But India's also getting pretty big. Chongqing is taken, and then Guangzhou. And Taiwan is a little like Taiwan is like Taiwan is just like this would be a nice little opportunity to do something. And Taiwan begins to move into China, and a lot of the areas of China kind of begin to capitulate over some of them at least, and they're kind of looking like China, where the 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 Chinese democracy and the Chinese Civil War, they're kind of looking like that. I'm pretty sure literally the same Taiwan here. It's literally just Taiwan. It kind of looks like Taiwan during that. And they begin to storm Beijing, and Beijing is really overwhelmed after the Japanese got there. And Beijing kind of falls, and from there, it's kind of China just kind of collapses, and it's not very great for them. So Taiwan was not very quick over here in the West. Like, okay, sure, we can get some oil and stuff. We'll become a little richer, but it doesn't have very much population in it, It's not like, so they really quickly swoop over here, take North Korea, some of South Korea, come up here into Manchuria, especially, try to take out, like, a lot of that, and they really do, they do well at this. So yeah, and eventually Japan begins to come back, and it's all from there, yes. So Japan comes back into their lands that they once had before China had taken them back. there are a few little border skirmishes with Taiwan, but eventually an official border is settled. Like, of course, neither one is happy about this because Taiwan kind of wants on this land, kind of, sort of, and Japan wants on some of this land. But there is a border decided here. Yeah. So it's, oh my god, I never thought the day would come. Korea is split east to west. No. Wow, that is just insanity. I cannot believe that just all of a sudden China collapsed like that. Wow. Wowie. Bro. China just kind of collapses it on itself, India begins to take all the land it had, and it's kind of really bad, you know. And then there's the official kind of collapse of China. It becomes capitalist China. Oh God, not this again. Laos kind of switches over to capitalism pretty soon because of a coup in their government. And India is pretty quick to come in, swoop up most of this land up here. They were pretty quick to come in and take it all, or at least most of it. The Russians tried to take some of it, and after this, Taiwan did kind of try too. It wasn't a great process, but Taiwan got a little land out of it. Yeah, so that happened, and then Russia poured in to, the rest of China, and that was that. There was, like, China was, like, officially gone. It's, like, official. China is no longer here. The new China is Taiwan. And it all comes down one day, and Russia kind of just, collapses. Yeah. So Russia kind of goes out into a full-on collapse. What the heck is going on here? Give me a moment. Syria, and then the Bulgarian one. Okay, Poland. Poland. Simply just right up here. Right? Yep. So basically, Russia collapses. So it kind of all started out. So it all started out here in Siberia when the Siberian People's Federation, which yes is communist, rebelled against Russia, and it was a massive rebellion. It took away a lot of Russia's oil, which was a bad thing for them. Then it was Kazakhstan, which was a bad thing. Like Siberia, like okay, they can deal with Siberia. They only have what 10,000-ish people there. They really don't have very many people. If the Vatican City wanted to, they could team up with Luxembourg's army, come over, and probably beat Siberia, of all things. And then there's Kazakhstan, who kind of came out, and Russia's like, oh no, we have to focus on this. But then Uzbekistan and Tajikistan and Turkmenistan all popped out, and then soon Afghanistan popped out, and that was kind of it for Russia down here, because then Iran popped out, and it was really bad for Russia. Yeah. Then there was Iraq following this, Turkey, and then soon Caucasia popped out. Well, technically it was Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan that popped out. Then Caucasia. Then did I already say Iraq? I think I did. Then Syria. Then Israel, and then Saudi Arabia got back the good majority of its territory. Egypt did too. They're just missing a little bit of the Sinai. Yeah, they came back too. Israel hates that. And then Belarus popped out, and then Estonia. And then there was the UN Corporation of Russian Evacuation. Because most countries had started a evacuation plan to literally just leave Earth, and where they were going to go was going to be Mars, but then they noticed that Mars would basically be Mercury by then, because yeah, that'd be really bad, so they'd basically be cooked alive. So then they decided on Pluto. They thought, you know what, maybe Pluto, but some of them were like, that'd be too cold. So then they thought up on one of Jupiter's moons, and they were like, maybe it's a little too cold. And then they thought about Saturn's moons, and they kind of decided on Enceladus, I'm pretty sure it's called, yeah. So they're going to Enceladus, which might not be enough room for everybody. But they also have a few other moons. Some of them are on Jupiter, some on Saturn, and there are like one or two they plan to go on Uranus. Following this, Norway, Sweden, and Finland rebelled, and then the anarchist state of Russia. Well, first it was actually the capitalist Republic of Russia, and then it was the anarchist state. And then there was Greece kind of popping back out, and then there was the Union of Anti-Serb States, or the Albanian Union. Then there's also the Bulgarian Union of People. Romania came back, along with Ukraine. I think I already said Poland. There's Lithuania, Latvia, and then Estonia that, all popped out there. And there was the Russian Islam Union. Yeah, that was a thing. And then there's the Serbian Republic of Croats that kind of popped back out, reforming kind of Yugoslavia, and the borders that Germany did. Switzerland got most of their land back. Denmark came back. Yeah, so there was a lot of stuff. Just Russia was just losing a lot of stuff, like all of their land. The only thing I really held on to down here was like the Dubai area. Yeah, besides that, they're basically just cooked. Yeah, so Russia is collapsing, and we are 4 or 5 months ish into the year. Very quickly, the capitalist state of Russia. Yeah, the capitalist state of Russia. Oh God. Oh God, no. The capitalist. It's probably up at the top. No, it's the bottom. Okay. Capitalist state of Russia quickly begins to advance further into the Federation, and is also pushing into the Russian anarchist state. Officially, like, kind of destroying them there. The only thing is these areas are kind of populated. I mean, St. Petersburg is right there, so it'll be kind of harder moving into these areas now. So they're still making pushes though, because they're quite a bit stronger. I mean, they have the capital, they have Moscow. They will push back against the UN Corporation, but they were like, "Oh, sorry, that was an accident. We thought you were Caucasia." Because they were kind of working with the UN to launch the Russian peoples into space. And they are launching into space with some of the animals and a bunch of food and water and the things to purify urine. Yeah. Anyway, soon the capitalists get major naval footholds here in Russia, and they come back down here and make a massive naval landing, which was definitely unneeded, but they still did it because I wanted them to look cooler, and I thought it would be cool, and I really wanted to do it. So yeah, it happened. Get little Bobby crying about it happening. Anyway, yeah. So they're gonna continue to push in. All of the Central Asian states there, including Iran and Afghanistan, who some people don't consider Central Asia, are given independence. They're all granted their independence down here, and soon all of the countries that were in NATO, and Belarus and Ukraine and basically all the countries Russia took over was granted independence. So we're just kind of left with the Russian Civil War. But the thing is, like, all of NATO is like supplying this one Russian nation, so it's kind of like they are de facto going to win this civil war. I mean, there's no way that the authoritarians or just normal Russia wins this, and let's be honest, Siberia isn't winning this either. Yeah, but eventually they kind of agree on peace because both of them are kind of getting a little tired. Especially Siberia. I mean, they have no military anymore, and but Russia is getting close to that too. So this Russia is trying to, evacuate everyone, and they have about 400 space shuttles launched into space, each of them carrying around 3 people-ish, at the maximum 10. So let's just put that in it. I'm gonna say a six times 400. Huh. That's like 20,400 people being launched into space. I have no clue if that was correct. I think it was. If I'm correct, it was. It might be more than that. Actually, it might be 240,000. I don't know. Yeah, but anyway, Caucasia is also attacked. But eventually, Caucasia is kind of granted independence here, and all of this happens, and yeah, it's an ugly, terrible, horrible map. Anyway, let's just end the Russian Federation for once. There's some agreements, and Norway gives in to capitalist Russia with, a little bit from the US, chipping in some extra cash for this. For them to for um uh for the island that they just took over that had some of Russia over there. I don't know what the island's called, but the island that Norway that island. I just go back over to that. Yeah. This island, they kind of agreed to let Russia have that. The new Russia have that. Um, and finally, Russia and the U.S. are friends. Yay! But this is the rise of a lot of radicalism ideologies here in Asia. Um, a lot of Arabia begins to turn fascist. Specifically Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. Oman is kind of hard for Oman there. Um, just completely ignore what I'm doing. Um, and then the UAE or what's left of it kind of goes fascist. Yeah, but anyway, as I was saying, since it was hard for Oman to do that. Um, yeah. They were kind of hard. It was kind of hard to keep themselves together, right? It was like kind of hard to keep themselves together and all that. Yeah. So this begins to happen. And it's really bad. This is basically a full blown split for Oman. But then in the north, something else happened. Yeah. The communist states. No, the Communist People's Union of Oman. And so this is basically capitalism is most likely not winning here, is what is the thing that everyone's saying is capitalism probably won't win. And it's probably unlikely that they did is what everyone's saying. But looking at this, I kind of agree with them. It's kind of um hard to see them winning. So yeah. So they really try to fight back as much as they can. At first, they're actually doing well against the communists. They're slightly pushing back the south, but it's really hard for Oman to keep themselves together. And then this happened. Um, the fascism states both. Oh no, my god. Soon there was a massive spearhead up in Oman, which completely has the front line collapse, and within maybe 2 weeks, the civil war's just over with fascism claiming it. And yeah, that's kind of that. I mean, everyone here is just now fascist, and the anarchists are extremely doing well over here. Malaysia, Thailand, South Vietnam, um, Philippines. So the Philippines, Thailand, and South Vietnam are on a team, and then there's Malaysia and Indonesia on a team here. Actually, no, Malaysia's on their team. Brunei, Indonesia, East Timor, and Papua New Guinea are all together against them, and it's this whole Great War. And so Indonesia is definitely going to be winning that down here right now. So that's gonna be happening. So yeah, they're going to begin to take over, um Malaysia, the entirety of it. Singapore is kinda cooked. Kuala Lumpur is claimed. And it's kind of a bummer that Malaysia just fell that quickly. Thailand. Oh, if I'm correct, isn't Thailand a kingdom? Wait a minute. Is it Thailand a kingdom? Yeah. Thailand begins to kind of push back against the tired Indonesians down here, and so India just declares war on all of them. India goes, who cares anymore? We're all gonna die. And the people really hate this. Some of the people like being a part of India and not their original countries. The Chinese. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, so they kind of don't like it. Um, and eventually they're all going to form a little something here, and that something is going to be the Union of Free Indian Workers. They all kind of unite forces here, take out, they consider the big bad, which is India. Yeah. So they all kind of throw hands with the main Indian government here. Right here is not the only area of it, though. Over here, a lot of controversy, on this, entire thing. So it's kinda probably gonna be a losing thing, here for India. And our good boy Taiwan is going to get involved. Yippee! Anyway, so Taiwan is going to quickly push into Indian territories because they really just want all of that sweet, amazing Chinese land. They're gonna come down here and they're gonna be like, oh, I thought you guys were India. Sorry, we were trying to help you overthrow India, which was a complete lie, but everyone buys it. Everyone's on the side of Taiwan and that. So yeah. That's kind of happening there. What did I call them? Shoot. What the heck? I hit select. Select. The Union. Okay. Union of Free Indian Worker. There we go. Okay. They're going to begin to, push further into Delhi, and they're going to take it over, and soon from there, the Indian Empire collapses, and the anarchist state of India is gone. But by then, India did kind of take over Thailand and Laos and a little bit of stuff, from some other countries. So then that was kind of integrated into the empire of India. So it truly ended in Indo or Indonesia, I guess, technically, because they well, they have a pretty weak economy now that Jakarta's gone. But I feel like now the state, them and Papua New Guinea could beat the Philippines definitely. Unless they had Thailand on their side, then probably not. Okay. So anyway, in anarchists begin to rise up in Germany. NATO has been collapsed. NATO has not existed. Like NATO has been collapsed. And Germany becomes fascist and nationalist. So I'm gonna have to say they're about 40% fascist, 30% nationalist, and 30% anarchist. Yeah. Interesting mix of Germans. Hope nothing bad happens. As he said, something bad did happen. Germany invades Denmark, taking it over. They soon run into Switzerland and Italy. Eventually, they use Italy as a corridor into France. Vichy France is back. They take Warsaw all by themselves and move down into the Czechoslovakian lands along with the Serbs. They soon wipe out most of Europe. They might be unstoppable. But then, rising from the shadows, the one who fought alone. Oh, never mind. Okay, anyway. But a new hero emerges in this story. Spain! Oh, just ignore this. The Spanish have the power to finally beat Germany. They can defeat the superpower, which is Germany. Oh my gosh, they can do it. We can build it. Yes, we can. Wait. What's happening in Spain? What's happening to the hero of the story? Wait, what happened to Libsyn? What the heck just happened? Hello? Oh, come on! Well, that's that, guys. Anyway, that's a wrap. Germany just took over the world. Guess it's pretty accurate. Anyway. Yeah, so that's basically that going on. Meanwhile, the North American Union is doing pretty well. They're trying to take on, um, Mexico. They're trying to get Mexico into their alliance, but Mexico just has too many, like, mafias and stuff, and it's just, like, not really good. Yeah, at all. But, because the Mexican government itself agreed to join the United States. But the Mexican, like, gangs and stuff, the cartel doesn't, no. They're like, no, we don't. But Mexico City is closed in on, and soon a lot of Central America kind of joins in on this. Except for Costa Rica. Because on an island 250 miles west of Costa Rica, dinosaurs are let loose. Oh my god, it's Isla Nublar. Soon the dinosaurs start an outbreak over in Costa Rica as Venezuela just suddenly dies and nobody cares about it because it was the US who did it. Costa Rica just is taken over and all the Americans with guns kill them. North America is like officially united. No, like it's literally officially united. I don't think this would happen. I think it could happen only for a short amount of time. For a short amount of time. Luckily, I'm not gonna have them break apart. We are about 8 months in, so 4 months until the sun kind of gets into everybody. It's really hot. Like it's heck of a lot hot. It is so hot that some areas of the world, people just have to kind of leave. Over here in the savannah, in the Sahara, this big area, people are, and people just kind of leave that area. It's too hot. People are burning alive here on the equator. It's like, yeah, it's really, really bad. The equator kind of has to be evacuated, which makes a lot of other cities more populated than they would be. And the areas around it are also kind of burning, but it's still livable conditions. Yeah, so that's that, I guess. Yeah. So that happens, Florida man's happy about this. I bet you that. Florida man hates this. And the poles kind of become warmer and they begin to melt a bit. And soon there's a bunch of floods. Now I'm gonna do this just to represent the floods. And there's a lot of floods. Like, tides are really rising. And I think the first thing I have to do with this is kill off the Dutch. The Netherlands kind of sink into the water without their, government stopping all of this. Now that they're under the German government, and a lot of areas kind of begin to drown. They kind of begin to go underneath it. Like, there are a lot of areas that just begin to sink into the water. It's really bad over here in like Norway, a bunch of islands. It's like not good over here. Eventually, this island, kind of just fully sinks along with a lot of other islands. Greenland, interesting topic, will have a lot of it melting. A lot of its ice kind of melts. It's kind of really bad. So a lot of its ice melts. I mean, Iceland is pretty much submerging over there. A lot of Canada kind of melts. It's like really melting here, which is not good for the Canadians. So a bunch of water, um, it's all just melting. In Alaska, there's melting, and then over in Siberia, here we go, yeah, here we go again. Eventually, a lot of this area is kind of flooded, especially the Caribbean here. Florida begins to flood over. I might still be alive though. I don't know. And eventually, some of the shores here begin to flood, and some cities. Mm, New York begins to flood. New York floods, huge collapse, and we're about 3 months in right now. Or 3 months until right now. Yeah. So we kind of just what's going on here is so a lot of the population of Earth. So we started this with 8 billion people. Yes, about 1 billion people died because of war and stuff. But besides that, around 4 billion people have been evacuated, which is a win for society here. But it's kind of a little hard for humanity to get off that fast. Of course, we have definitely advanced, so we can go a little faster than our ships do today. But it'll still take a few years to get to the moons of Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus. That'll take years. But they do have each singular ship has enough food to last about 50 years. So hopefully they can all like get to where they need to go. So Earth kind of begins to flood, and the Kuiper Belt begins to become unstable because of the sun, and meteors kind of begin to slam down into Earth, and yeah, there's gonna be a lot of stuff. A lot of rivers here. The Mississippi begins to flood up areas, and it's getting really bad. The rest of Florida is now an island over here. It's beginning to flood. Some of the shore over here is beginning to flood. Actually, a lot of the coastlines of the world have flooded by now. And a lot of islands have sunk, like a lot of them. So yeah, hopefully your coast is like mountains, because if not, this flood is definitely going to get you. Cape Town is flooded. Maputo is flooded. It's getting really bad. A lot of Mozambique is flooded. Madagascar begins to, Madagascar is barely surviving. It's a tiny island now. Mainly some mountain. Mainly, Comoros and all the islands over here have kind of flooded. There are massive floods here. The Great Lake kind of overflows some areas and then connects up with this. And it's getting really bad. I completely forgot to do our Somalia check, which is why Somalia no longer exists. Yeah, so there's some really bad. It's really bad. So the Nile floods, which is really bad for Egypt. They just lose all their population. A lot of areas now begin to flood over here. The coasts of Iberia, Morocco, Algiers. A lot of the Mediterranean areas are flooded over. Athens is half flooded. Everyone's trying to prevent this. This is the Great Flood again. Yeah. Cyprus is gone, sadly. We will miss you, Cyprus. Definitely not a lie. Sri Lanka floods, and it's beginning to get really bad. Yeah, so this is about the flooding that's gonna happen. A lot of the Philippines, though, is kind of flooded now, if not all of it. Taiwan is kind of flooding down. There's some Chinese areas. Beijing's getting to flood over. There's some of this over here in Japan flooding. Yeah, it's getting really, really bad. And a lot of the ice over here in Siberia is just beginning to melt, and there is a massive flood which kills about a few thousand people, maybe a million. I'm gonna say a few thousand people. I feel like a lot of people would have been evacuated by now. Um, yeah. So everything kind of begins to flood over, and it's getting really bad for everybody. Like, Sweden barely exists. Like, Sweden lost Stockholm. I mean, Oslo's probably gonna fall soon. If not, they already have. I think they're a bit more north though, so I think they're safe. At the moment, soon some waters begin to get towards Berlin. What's happening? Um, and over at the Great Lakes, they begin to overflow. Toronto, Ottawa, and Chicago all flood in this. Dallas is overrun. Washington, D.C. I've been evacuated. I'm safe, but Florida's gone now. And then over here kind of floods all in. And then over here is gone already. And it's getting really bad. It's like horrible for humanity. And so all of the anarchists across Asia, which is a lot of the countries, I mean, they've all been kind of developing nukes, and they dropped nukes, and now there are nuclear zones that we can't go in anymore. There's also a few nuclear zones from, Russia earlier. So there were definitely nukes dropped over here. There was a nuke dropped on Kiev and some over here in areas so all of this is kind of radioactive. Vienna, huh, Belgrade is kind of nuked. Yeah, and these are only the ones that are kind of left at the moment. There were a bunch of nukes though dropped all over when Russia gave through. There were some nukes over here. So there was a nuke in Athens, yes. They actually did drop two nukes in between Ankara and Istanbul to kind of scare them, and they kind of dropped the wrong nuke. So Russia was developing a giant nuke, and they accidentally dropped it here, and they dropped two of them. The first one was that big, and then the second one kind of wiped out Istanbul. Yeah, and Ankara was definitely half of it was like destroyed. There was another nuke dropped there. It was kind of bad. So then there's Syria, Caucasia was definitely nuked. There were some areas that were also nuked. They definitely nuked a lot over here from China. They actually did nuke outside Beijing. They were trying to hit Beijing but missed. They actually got Lahore. They got Lahore spot on. Almost. They actually did nuke Delhi and Karachi too. and a bunch of nukes are just being dropped around the world now, and it's really bad. The anarchist states are just everyone's becoming anarchist. Like Germany is now an anarchist state, and they bomb the heck out of Madrid. Like, I do not care what you say. Spain is no more. And there's just a bunch of nukes being dropped everywhere by the anarchists. And also, yes, I do know that Spain was like on Germany's side, but Germany saw them as stopping them and as holding them down and stuff. There's a bunch of nukes kind of dropped on Africa, especially on some of these cities here. Especially Pretoria. You know, there was 18 nukes dropped on there. Lesotho doesn't exist anymore. That is the, and that was the life lesson of the story. Move out of Lesotho. You will be bombed to death. No, I'm kidding. Bangkok was nuked. A lot of this is all nuked. Soon, the world population, it was at, I think, 2 billion, because I think we said 4 billion had already left, and there was 1 billion, that died in war. There is about 2.5 billion people left, because of how many nukes have just been being dropped. Jakarta makes that drop to 2.4. Soon a bunch of nukes dropped over here. And there are definitely some nukes dropped over here. And why out here? Yeah. All of the nukes dropped out here did nothing. Wait, why did they drop nukes to make a smiley face? That killed one person. Bruh. Oh my god! What are these people doing? Russia! Bro, Australia now has 2 people in it who are underground in their basement. Oh my god, Tasmania. Nah, the Tasmanian tigers are dead. Yeah, a lot of areas are just kind of gone now. They're like not really. It's all kind of done. I mean, Madagascar's gone now. Everyone there died. And finally over to the Americas with all the nukes being dropped. It's really bad. Officially, there's 2.2 billion people left on the planet, and now there is only 1.8 billion because like 400 million people were evacuated. A lot of, this union of the North American Union was evacuated. Los Angeles was destroyed. I mean, Washington, D.C. was destroyed by the Russians. New York was bombed by the Russians, too. So there wasn't very much population left there, I guess. There were some nukes out here near some outposts. There were, these nukes and all that. But there's just a lot of nukes everywhere. Mexico City did get nuked. But so these are past nukes and nukes being dropped right now. A lot of South America is nukes being dropped right now. Because, the anarchist states, they're definitely getting Buenos Aires. Bro, they've dropped so many nukes, there's a circle coming in on Buenos Aires. And finally, the anarchist states developed numerous of those giant bombs the Russians were using against the Turks on accident. And it's getting really bad over here in South America, and the anarchist states begin blowing each other up. Soon, there is only 500 million people left on the planet. Around 800,000 people were evacuated, and the other 300 million were killed off due to the nukes. The remaining people in Abuja and Lagos were killed off. Sudan and Ethiopia fall to the chaos. Soon, Eritrea is gone. Egypt has near no population. Jerusalem, Damascus, Aleppo, Baghdad, Riyadh, Makkah, and Djibouti are all blown up in single hits in the span of a day. Tehran is soon blown up. Most of the world's nuclear supply has been used. And there's a lot of nukes. The world has fallen into chaos. And over in Taiwan, who upsettingly for every capitalist and all my Taiwan fans out there, got an anarchist leader. He begins to bomb his own country. saying that it's the end. The Chinese never expected this to happen. And soon they begin to blow up Japan for them taking Manchuria, they say. So, yeah. Tokyo is bombed, Japan is destroyed, and Taiwan unleashes zombies onto the world. But the asteroids also, when the asteroids also hit, there were some areas that the asteroids didn't flood, and it's just impact sites, which are also kind of uninhabitable because of the meteors crashing in. So the first few meteors began hitting around and it's all going down. There were quite a few meteors that hit the Earth. So yeah, Madagascar got nuked and blown up to oblivion by by a meteor. There were surprisingly not very many in South America, but Brasilia and Rio de Janeiro did get hit, so no more Christ the Redeemer. Over in Alaska, there were surprisingly many. I think there's more than the total that were in South America that just landed in Alaska alone. There's also a few that landed over here. So populations were just wrecked after this. The Greenland kind of got blown up to smithereens, and it was getting really bad. There were a few that hit Spain, but particularly two that are big enough to be shown. Yeah, there were a bunch of little tiny meteors that hit. So yeah, soon there were quite a few that hit the German land. Because they just cover a big area. Scotland was kind of London too. Up there, there were a few up here, which is kind of bad for them. Finland, and then there were quite a few over here in Asia, in Russia and stuff. Yeah, there we go. What just happened? Oh, I know what happened. Okay. Man, 11,000 pixels. Man, 27,000 pixels. Yeah, anyway, now the zombie outbreak is kind of going on. Humanity is pretty much doomed, is what is going on here. The zombies begin to take over Beijing. Beijing begins to crawl with zombies, and from there, the zombies spread out across the Taiwanese land. Soon, the leader of Taiwan um is imprisoned, but the damage is already done. They removed him from power too late. His zombie outbreak was spreading throughout Taiwan. This was extremely bad. Soon people in China begin to evacuate fast. The UN quickly sets up emergency launch areas as the zombie outbreak spearheaded towards India. For some reason, not me having lazy storytelling or anything. But yeah. And zombie outbreaks spread across the world. It turns out Taiwan had launched zombie gases across many nations. Moscow is overrun by zombies. Warsaw and Berlin fall. They mainly targeted major cities and capitals. Istanbul, Ankara, some areas over in Turkey. They just targeted many, many population centers. Djibouti, which was already wrecked, so it was kind of pointless sending it there. Brazzaville and Kinshasa destroyed instantly. Yeah. Over in North America, there's really no city to do because they all flooded. And I guess you can say, oh, Panama City. No, maybe there's this one pixel right here they could have done, but they do still do a bit over here, spreading the zombies throughout the North American Union. The zombies go across the North American Union, terrorizing it. Soon Sao Paulo is taken down with the zombie plague. Very soon, La Paz also falls, along with many, many areas of Brazil, especially along the coast. This zombie plague is terrible for humanity. The humans have to leave. We are 1 month away from the sun engulfing the earth. By now, the UN has set up many areas to launch people away from. The UN launch sites. They try to put them as close to people as they can possibly. There are many spread out across Brazil, trying to escape the zombies. Soon Brazil is evacuated very much. Meanwhile, there are a few in Peru, not very many in Chile or Argentina. I guess in Argentina there's a few actually. Yeah. But for the people here, they were kind of going to die if the zombies had gotten into the UN areas before them. Most of the people began to head south to the one over here, the launch site over here, which was soon turn into a UN base, this area, because it was further away from the zombies. And the people who did come up here had a lesser chance of surviving, which was why most people went down south. There were 2 set up in Colombia, 1 set up in Ecuador, a few set up in Venezuela, 1 set up in Guyana and Suriname, and 1 set up in French Guiana. Soon, there were tons being spread out all across the North American Union. The UN began launching base after base. And by now, the economies had already collapsed. Everything was either free or $10 trillion for a piece of bread. Yeah, so there is a bunch of, UN launch sites, especially over here in the West, because that's where a lot of the population pretty much just is, along with down here in the remaining parts of Mexico. So, yeah, there's a lot less people over here. They really all migrated over here after the asteroids and the nukes. They all migrated, over here, and then all the floods, and then the zombies happened. Which is why it was kind of surprising that the Chinese didn't really launch any zombie stuff here. Well, the Chinese technically actually did launch the zombie stuff, but their ranges weren't far enough. Their ranges just only reach to about right here. Like this was the line. Like they could have gotten some of them and spread it, but they didn't want to waste as many. Oh my god, this video is an hour long. Okay, wow. Yeah, so there's a bunch of bunkers built. Launch sites built up over there in the Americas. Meanwhile, Algeria and Morocco are showered with launch sites. Western Sahara even has some. The UN tries to get some in as many places as they can, but it's just extremely hard. I mean, most of the world is burning in a zombie plague. It's really kind of useless to do this, but they decided to anyways. Soon, they set up all over India. Indian people quickly evacuate. They set one up in Dhaka and Kolkata. And eventually, more major cities that are, still surviving, which are few, but Paris and London, have them set up there. St. Petersburg has them set up there. And there's a lot just going on, It's very much. The UN sets up quite a few bases. Yeah, all over the world, but there are just some areas they couldn't get to. Not in time, at least. Yeah, so this is especially in China is where they couldn't get very much, because, with no leader, it's kind of hard, but the people definitely wanted this. The people that had fled Chongqing during the earthquake would definitely be able to leave. The people of Guangzhou could leave too when they fled from from the earthquake? From the nuke. Yeah. So this is getting really bad. And remember how the oceans did a bunch of stuff? Well, With the sun just so close, everything begins to burn. The UN sets up their last areas. They try their best to accommodate for everybody and let everyone escape. They set up a few around Oceania and Southeast Asia, along with New Zealand, who I kind of completely forgot about. But they might have just been too late to those areas, as very quickly everything begins to burn. The sun is destroying the earth. The earth is burning. The earth is getting destroyed. The entirety of the equator begins to just burn. Any water there, destroy, gone, evaporated. Soon, many places were gone. Most of Africa was gone. If you hadn't evacuated, you would no longer be here. That began happening all over the areas that were across the equator. The populations in the West collapsed. This was the end. This is the end. The end was near for humanity. They were not going to make it out. A lot of the equator just collapsed. Soon the zombies began to die off, and that was that, I guess. The deserts were gone. Humanity was beginning to be wiped off the planet. The final humans who were left behind in these now burnt out areas were the last ones that were able to escape. As the area burned, as they felt the heat getting closer, they escaped to the last UN launch site in the area. It was a group of four people. There was room for 5 more. They managed to get on, and the ship took off with 9 people. A lot of Turkey had already evacuated, but the ones who didn't make it were bad. And it was really bad. About 4,000, 5,000. I'm gonna actually say 20,000 or fewer. The last 20 people to evacuate from the UN area were evacuating as this area was burning up. But soon, the UN members launched themselves into space, and the Earth would burn. The German leader decided to stay on Earth to watch it burn. He knew he wouldn't make it out, but he thought that was a beautiful thing. Wait, is this guy insane? Is that guy depressed or something? Did he literally just commit suicide? Like, wait, what? Like, you good? You good, huh? Greenland begins to burn. And very soon, with the ashes of this world, and the last people evacuating, while everyone else burned, the sun began to engulf the planet. And started from over here. So this area probably should have burnt up more. But the sun immediately begins to engulf the earth. This area of the earth burns up as the sun collides with earth. The sun quickly begins to push further in as the lands burn. The people caught in this met a very hot death. Beijing burnt. The zombies that the leader of Taiwan, who was probably evil, were sent out. But the leader, no longer existed. The leader of Taiwan who made them, he was probably the biggest antagonist of the story besides Russia at the beginning. Or I guess India too. It's kind of antagonist. But whatever. I'm getting lost. I'm getting off track. But the leader of Taiwan, who made the zombies and released them onto the world, along with dropping a lot of the nukes because he kind of went anarchist mode. He was left in prison while all the other prisoners got to escape on the rockets. Humanity could have united for this one cause, but they decided not to. Instead, half of humanity watched it burn and hoped it burned to the ground. And the rest of humanity banded together to stop what was coming, to give themselves a better, brighter future together. There was a lesson to this story. When you work together, you can accomplish great things. Just like some of the countries in this world. The countries of North America, most of them came together so they could escape. And they helped everyone else do that too. But if you sit there alone, hoping the world burns, like Russia did at the start, or the president of Taiwan, the great things you wish to accomplish will be impossible. They'll be impossible for many years until future technology makes it. But if you stand alone, the things you want to do, the things you want to create, you won't be able to do. Not alone. Anyway, let's watch the world burn. Less heartwarming drama stuff and life lessons. More burning Europe to the ground. I feel like this should be going faster. Anyway, Europe begins to burn down. So many of you clicked off during that scene. Wow. Everything burns. The world is gone. All of humanity is burnt. If you see any borders of countries or areas like the impact sites now, they are not actually there. That was just me being lazy. Yeah, I'm sorry. The sun had already burnt up all of Earth by it. Had already burnt up all of Earth. This was only in 2 minutes of hitting, by the way. Yeah. There were like 3 people who escaped within that 2 minutes. Beside that, everyone else was cooked. Yeah. One of those people were like just a genuine survivor. And then the other 2 people were UN, like NASA kind of guys who were trying to help them all escape. Anyway, yeah. So Greenland burns down. And soon the world kind of is over. Or at least for now. Maybe one day humanity will somehow find a new Earth. Possibly go back in time to stop this. when their technology is more advanced. Possibly humanity could come back. But for now, humanity will never see Earth again. Humanity will only see the outer system. Also, this is kind of just a theory. Like, some people don't genuinely think if when the Earth or when the sun becomes a red giant, if the Earth isn't already blown up because of human nukes, then it might not actually reach the Earth. And I completely get that. Like, for the sun to expand a full astronomical unit, I mean, it's completely possible, I feel like, but just I don't think the sun would have enough energy to do that because it loses mass when it expands. So I feel like it would just go into, if I'm correct, the white dwarf by then. Anyway, yeah guys, so the Earth is over. Should we do something or I don't know. The Earth is over. I don't know, the Earth is over. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Yeah. Also, I think I probably made a little mistake with coloring in the sun yellow. I think that was a completely bad decision because the sun would be a red giant right now. There we go. The sun, who is 350,000 pixels. And also, I forgot what I was. Oh my god, this is an hour and 16 minutes long. Wow, wow, wow. Wowzer. I cannot believe that. It's an hour long. The what, the what, the what? The what, the, what in, what, the, who, what, the, what, in, what, who, what, and. Anyway, guys, yeah. Make sure to join the Nerd Army and subscribe to Cartleman92 Mason's Cove channel and more along with Razor Rides and an easy way to search him, Mr. Bryger underscore 27. Peace. I really hope you weren't able to make out any of the words I just said. And if you did, leave down in the comments what I said. I guess if you play it at 0.5 speed, you might be able to hear it. Anyway, guys, yeah. Bye, guys. Who the what the what is what